As you know, we're in a global healthcare, humanitarian, and economic crisis of a magnitude that we have not seen for over 100 years. This is an incredibly difficult time for everyone. It does not matter who you are, where you live, or what you care about. COVID-19 impacts everyone. The world has changed in so many ways over the past 8 weeks, but the biggest changes, as we all know, are yet to come. There will be many, many permanent changes to every aspect of life, business, and governance in the post-COVID-19 era. Today, I'd like to focus on how the startup world has been impacted and what we can expect over the coming years for India's startup ecosystem. The post-COVID era will bring about a large number of challenges and opportunities for startups in India, but also all over the world. But before we look into the future, it is important that we touch on the current situation, discuss what startups should be doing now, and the help they need to weather this storm. As all of us know, over the past decade, we've seen the Indian startup ecosystem grow from infancy into the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. There are over 40,000 startups in India today and some 30 unicorns. Over $50 billion has been invested in Indian startups over the past 5 years. Just 10 years ago, if you go back to 2010, India had less than 1,000 startups, 0 unicorns, and less than $500 million a year was invested in venture capital each year in India. What a difference this past decade has made. The current crisis, however, is creating unprecedented challenges to India's startup ecosystem. Let me focus on a few numbers that are not as widely known. Of the over 40,000 Indian startups, only 10% have raised external capital from venture capital firms or angel investors, right? Everybody, in the ecosystem as well as in media talks about all the funded companies, but the real story of Indian startups is not the funded companies, because only 10% of the over 40,000 Indian startups are funded. And when we look at the 10% of startups that have raised capital, external capital, 80% of them are unprofitable. Now, this is to be expected since external capital is raised to focus on accelerating growth. So no investor would expect a startup in the very early stages to be profitable. While some of the funded startups will be able to continue to raise capital in the months ahead, many will face challenges to raise external capital. 90% of Indian startups have not raised external capital. Now keep in mind that is over 35,000 Indian startups. And of these unfunded companies, only 40% are profitable. And these unfunded startups have, on average, less than 2 months of cash reserves. As we enter the 6th week of lockdown, thousands of India's startups are facing an existential crisis. In fact, if you extend that to small and medium businesses, as all of us know, that number runs into the millions. And by the end of May, it is very likely that many thousands of our startups will cease to be in business. Every startup founder in the country is focusing today only on one thing: survival. We're deeply impressed with how founders have acted. They've acted very quickly to ensure that they take care of their teams and have taken decisive actions to extend cash runway. If you're a startup founder, the thing that matters the most today is cash runway. And the advice that we've been giving to our portfolio as tied to the entire ecosystem and every single investor and seasoned entrepreneur has been given to startups over the last 6 weeks is just one thing. If you have 3 months of cash runway, extend it to 6 months. If you have 6 months of cash runway, extend it to 12 months. And if you have 12 months of cash runway, extend it to 24 months. Because if you have 24 months of cash runway, there's a pretty high likelihood that you'll make it through this. Still, many founders are facing incredibly tough choices, especially in industries where demand either has evaporated or is evaporating, and where demand will certainly not come back anytime soon.